take this off here. All right, so today is an important day, okay? Today we got the Federal Reserve going ahead and giving a 25 basis point rate hike, okay? I love walking here because I just finished my shift. I'm very excited to talk with you guys. I'm not gonna have time to talk with you at the studio because I got to get work done. I got a lot of, there's a lot of things I need to get done. So, but I wanted to go ahead and break this up here, okay? So, I didn't hear Dr. Jerome. I didn't hear Mr. Jerome Powell say his speech yet in terms of what he needs to do. But I did basically look at the 25 basis point rate hike. All right. So what this basically means to me is this basically tells me that just like what we initially hypothesized, okay? We initially hypothesized that the Federal Reserve is literally being trapped by the U.S. government. They can't have interest rates hikes for far too long, especially at these rates, because they're going to have to start easing, right? And we don't know when they're going to start easing, but we know that we're on a good trajectory. So if you go ahead and very briefly put, if we go ahead and just kind of graph just the slope, first we did 75 basis points, right? 50 basis points, we were going high. And then if it's 50, now it's 25. Right? So we're approaching a peak of where the federal funds rate is going to be at. The next question is, when are they going to hold it, and how long are they going to hold it? Okay? So we're saying he was the most dovish we've heard so far. Thank you. I haven't listened to it yet, right? So, and that's what I assume, right? Because this is all part of again, whoever tells you the government, the Federal Reserve runs independently of the government, it's completely crap. It's completely made up and BS, okay? Now, what's interesting here is I looked at some of the research very quickly when I was walking here. There's a lot of indicators that suggest that we're about to enter a positive momentum. Now, personally, I do see a lot of dumb money spike up, but smart money go down. What do they know that we don't know, right? And that's the question that we need to go ahead and basically dissect out and try to figure out, okay? So, but overall, this is why I like to do an intrinsic value calculation. This is why I like to analyze and look up the intrinsic value of a company and project 10 years into the future and discount at a 10 to 15% discount rate using a 2 to 3% perpetuity model. Because what that basically does for me is it protects me just in case if there's a recession. Okay? Just in case if there's literally a huge recession, it protects me. Because then I calculated a 20% margin of safety on top of the intrinsic value calculation. And we already know that the stocks that I look at, they're extremely undervalued, okay? So this is essentially, I think where, how like when all of the stars align, that's basically what I'm seeing right now for just, let's say, one of the companies I'm looking at, Clover, okay? We have a CFO that's coming in, and that's essentially about to basically, they've been firing a lot of folks. They've been reducing, sadly, a lot of the benefits that are unnecessary. I hate to say that, but they are necessary. But, like, for example, the food benefit program, they're an insurance company. They're not a food program, right? So they're removing a lot of these excess expenses, and my future doctor heart aches for this because, it's terrible. But again, they need to focus on one thing, and that's they need to basically democratize their Clover Assistant amongst all physicians in the United States. Okay? So by looking at this, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm seeing is that the Federal Reserve is pretty much indicating that the fight for inflation is basically over. Inflation has been defeated. Okay? And what that basically tells me is that because inflation is defeated, what other things should we look at now? Now, the biggest thing is the jobs market. How far is the Federal Reserve willing to do to sacrifice the jobs market? And how much of a recession do they want us to go into, even though we're still pretty strong on growth, right? We are seeing a lot of companies earlier on do a lot of layoffs because they're preparing for the worst. So what I want to look at now is I want to look at the unemployment rates, and I want to see what are other companies basically doing. That's the biggest thing that I'm looking at right now. And I'm going to track all the earnings reports, especially the ones like, for example, there's like things for construction. I want to look at the companies that are built, that are publicly traded, because that's going to give me an access point to basically say, okay, are these companies building? I want to take a look at Zillow. What are their issues? I want to take a look at Visa, American Express. I want to see, are the wealthy people spending, and how are they spending their money? This is the perfect part about what earnings does for you. You're able to track things down and able to break things and be able to conceptualize them to give you a strong investment thesis. But let me just make it simple and easy, because there's a lot of YouTubers out there that basically go in and say, oh, the Federal Reserve said this. Oh, the market wrecked. The Federal Reserve is about to wreck the market. Oh, the Federal Reserve is going to make them. I'm sure there's a lot of YouTubers right now that are basically saying that you're basically saying, this Federal Reserve bailed out the market. I'm sure that they're going to say that, right? But here's the biggest part, guys. It's step one, which is never bet against America. Never bet against America, okay? So that's essentially, basically, what's the biggest thing, okay? That's the biggest thing right now. And you just don't bet against this country. So by knowing that, and most people get trapped into these dips. Most people get trapped into these crazy dip cycles that they just lose that mentality. Now, if you guys recall when it was approaching its book value, and a lot of stocks were down. Remember we did that sentimental analysis, and you know what we found? If you go back on Reddit, people were just angry at each other. I had people that were commenting that are saying, how could you be so not emotional? You must not own any shares or anything. It's crazy how emotional people get, right? And this is good and bad. It's bad because retail investors will always lose. It's good because there'll always be opportunity in the market, okay? But overall, this makes me extremely bullish for 2025. In fact, I might even see a bullish 2024. And some crazy nuts out there are pretty much looking at a bullish 2023 at the end. I'm not that bullish, I would say. I'm a little cognizant that we have a lot that we need to do in order to repair all the money printing that the Federal Reserve has done. Now, just looking and projecting out to the future, I am a little bit worried about North Korea. I am a little worried about Iran, and I'm worried about Taiwan with China. Now, again, just keep this in the back of your mind, because I'm just trying to look at what other things and what other catastrophes could happen to essentially, create this, not like, I hate to say world war, but like a half of a war, like a half of a kind of a geographically located war. Because if you don't recall, just a couple days ago, Israel, I think, allegedly sent some drones and hit Iran. So these are all, little things that I'm sure you can probably hear it on the mainstream media. I don't know why, but these are things that add to kind of this, insecurity that we all feel in terms of the global geopolitical events. So these are things to keep track of. But again, it'll just be another opportunity. But it's always nice to essentially see that, because then you can look at past wars and see how much they've dropped. And then if you're, look at and calculate some intrinsic value calculations, and when we have a bull market in 2025, 2026, then you can potentially short the overvalued stocks, which we haven't talked about this channel. And then you could play that game. But I don't, these are the things that you want to do once you have about 5 years, 10 years in the market. You don't want to start off, for all the people that did, you can chime in and you can, share your losses, because it's definitely a tough game to do. All right, guys, it's always a privilege and honor to be able to help and share with you guys kind of my thoughts on the market, how I'm viewing this. I'm always cautiously optimistic. Again, I only like to look at earnings reports, and then and how is the business doing fundamentally, and obviously some economic indicators and all the technicals that we basically do. But I'll keep you posted. Sorry there hasn't been a lot of good quality videos. I get that. Thank you for bearing with me. It's just I'm dealing with a lot right now, and this is one of my favorite rotations. It's surgery, so I'm really giving it my best, and it's definitely a lot of hours. And then I'm also doing a lot of note cards and questions, and I'm going in and about to publish a paper. So I'll share with you guys the papers and all that I'm going to be publishing. So that'll be very fun. And if there's any academic scientists that are watching, I would love if you can cite them if that's part of your research. That'll be really nice. All right, guys. Love each and every one of you guys, and I'll see you on the next one. I'm gonna go get to work.